Back in the day, a 2011 style gun was considered a sporting pistol. These days, we're trying to make them do everything, with USPSA introducing Limited Optics Division and IDPA changing their rules last year. The Bul Armory Air and SAW have been updated to be compatible with optics mounts and are obvious choices for this use. The Air doesn't pretend to be a duty gun, it doesn't even have a rail section. Its springing is optimized for being fast and accurate. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel, and before we get started, what do you call a sleepwalking nun? A Roman Catholic. That dad joke comes to us from our very own NJ Cranes in our comment section. If you've got a favorite dad joke, then just leave it in the comment section and the best ones will get featured on the channel. For a while now, 2011 style pistols did not really have a home in sporting uses because .40 caliber basically dominated the iron sight division, and if it was single action only, it had to be an open gun. Now there is an opportunity for a very popular pistol amongst normies and not gamers is now competitive in the shooting sports again. This is the Bul Armory Air pistol, and Air stands for Awesome Infinity Racer. That's not what it stands for. Basically, it's called an Air because you can see air through the slide. That's really all it is, they told me. They sent me this pistol to do content with and all of that good stuff, so I thought, why not take it to a performance pistol class that I had coming up and shoot it in some matches to give a video to you guys. So that's exactly what I did. I put this optic on this pistol, but first and foremost, the iron sights that come on this gun and the removable iron sight plate that comes on it. There's actually a really good set of irons, fully adjustable, really good set of sights. But I put the plate on, and we'll talk about the plate. There is going to be some negatives at the end of the video. We'll talk about this more there. But I got the sight on it. I put about 250 rounds through the gun, just shooting around with it, getting used to it, getting the gun zeroed, and then I took it to the class. The class was with Charlie Perez. There's a video on the channel you can check out about shooting moving targets with him. But throughout the class, the gun ran pretty well. I did have 2 hiccups again, talk about those in the negative, but I fully blessed the gun. It made it just fine. But before we get going there, let's talk about the 2011 style pistol, a little bit of history for you guys because you guys are a bunch of poets and scholars, but so you already know this. But at the same time, just for those of you who may not know, the 2011 style pistol was originally conceived as having a polymer grip. As we've gone forward into kind of like the custom builder era of pistols, a lot of the high-end shops have developed these aluminum and steel grip pistols, and I think that's largely due to practicality. They can actually machine those in-house and don't have to rely on an injection molder to make polymer grips for them. But both the Bul Armory M5 and the original 2011 style pistol were both introduced in the year of 1994. You know, when there's a good idea and people are kind of barking up the same tree and then they kind of come out at the same time. I think that's kind of what happened, although I wasn't paying attention back then. So if you know, sound off in the comments. And the thought being, because Texas is hot and Israel is hot, is that the polymer grip will not get as hot as the metal guns. And back in the day, they were running Caspian framed double stack 1911 pistols, wide bodies, paras, whatever you care to call them. And the problem in the Texas summer sun, which I learned this past weekend in the Charlie class, is that guns get really hot when you leave them in the sun. Nice thing about a polymer grip, it doesn't heat up as much, and it's very warm in Israel as well. The other nice thing about a polymer grip is that it deforms under recoil. So you've got this modular grip, so right here at the joint, you're going to lose some energy as the grip deforms. The grip is going to compress in your hand and it's going to absorb some of the energy. When you shoot an aluminum frame pistol, all that energy is dumped into your arms and it weighs about the same as polymer. So the original 2011 M5 design has a polymer grip, which I actually prefer for a non-compensated gun. I think that this is the right material to be making gun frames out of. And the gray grip on the Bul Armory Air is actually very solid. It has a very nice sculpt up under the trigger guard. It has the double undercut right there, so when you build a good grip, it's squared away. The grip texture on the side panels, it feels almost more like a 1911, runs all the way up to the top of the frame. So the important part, which is right here under the safety where your support hand builds a grip, is really, really squared away and you can get excellent traction. The back strap and the front strap both have really aggressive bitey traction. so the gun stays planted in your hand. With a little bit of pro grip, the gun didn't move around at all. It just stayed glued to my hands like Velcro. At the bottom of the grip is this big IPSC box legal magwell, which means it should be legal in IDPA as well. It does have this large magazine button that I rotated out of the way of my support hand grip, just like on my open guns. And it does have trimmed ambi safeties with no shielding on them that is, you know, really nice, all tool steel, very, very well done. The trigger on the gun is great. It came to me at about 2.5 pounds. There is basically almost no take up and then a little bit of over travel, and I'll talk about that a little bit in the negatives, but the trigger is absolutely bonkers out of the box. It is a very short, very tactile, just a wonderfully done gunsmith style trigger. The frame, as you may have noticed, is completely bare. It is a beautiful full-length dust cover, which I absolutely love. I am a huge fan of stainless steel or hard chrome pistols, so this gun's aesthetics really do it for me. You can see there's no rail slots on the bottom of it there. It's just gorgeous. It's just super clean, very understated, just a beautiful, beautiful gun. The gills on the slide, the vents, whatever you want to call them, and they're not really weight savings over like the SAW. This is only like 20 grams lighter than the SAW is, so that's really the difference in that, which is not very much weight at all. You can see it has kind of a tapered bull barrel right there. It kind of flares out where it locks up with the slide at the end. It has a full-length guide rod, which requires they give you a little takedown tool, or you can use a paper clip or a staple at the range to take the gun apart with its full-length guide rod. One thing that is kind of cool about the Bul Armory guns on this frame is that rather than having like 4 little rail sections like proper 2011s do, they only have 2 rail sections, very long from about here to here. It's just a mono rail on either side of the slide. So that adds additional strength, because it's very common if a 2011 frame is going to crack, it's going to be around the slide stop right there, and that extra rail section does reinforce the frame and give it a little bit more stability. It's more of a thing on open guns, but even still, it's nice to have on the minor guns. The gun is pretty light. It's only about 37 ounces before the optic with no magazine, which is kind of nice because it shoots like a heavier gun. Because it does have a full-length dust cover, it has a bit of a muzzle-heavy bias when you just hold it in hand. It balances out a little bit with a loaded magazine in the grip, but the gun shoots very much like my open guns. I was very pleased with how the gun returned. Let's talk about fit and finish. The way this gun came to me, it was hands down the tightest. There was zero wiggle from the slide to frame, and basically, well, not basically, almost no wiggle, no perceptible wiggle moving the barrel to the slide at all. The gun was fit very, very, very well. After shooting what I've shot through it, there is a small amount of wiggle as the gun has kind of fire fit together, but it's still a very, very tight gun. The cool thing about these slide cuts is that when you lock the slide to the rear, these slide cuts expose the locking lugs. So if you're shooting a match in like West Texas or something, you can just take some oil at lunchtime, apply it to the back of each rail, apply it to the locking lugs, and then you can spread it around and your gun is good to go. Now, some of you guys are probably scoffing, oh, I don't have to do that with my Glock. All you're saying to me in very few words is that you haven't shot in West Texas or like Utah or someplace like that. When the wind blows and the dust blows all over the ingress points, all over the guns, it will choke all the guns. Just as a matter of course, oil all guns at lunchtime on all-day matches. It's just a good idea. The gun is going to come in a proper 2011 case, the kind that you would want to fly with to go to like matches and stuff like that. Comes with one of those, and it comes with 3 magazines. The magazines are 19 rounders, which would be suitable for like IDPA. They should fit in the box as well. So if you're going to be shooting USPSA, you're going to need to either get some mag bases or just some MBX 140s. So that's a nice point to talk about the aftermarket. Since Bul Armory, while it doesn't have a ton of brand recognition in the US market, it has a ton of recognition overseas. Overseas, the Bul Armory guns are very, very popular in Europe throughout IPSC competition. So all of the competition holster makers make stuff for Bul Armory guns. It's already baked in. The aftermarket is already there. So I tried the gun in 3 different holsters just to test it out. I used the Double Alpha Academy Flex holster for the class. I have used the Ghost Hydra P, which actually I really like, and for a limited optics rig, that's going to be the rig that I run for this gun. And I used, I think it's like a Black Scorpion Gear generic 5-inch 2011 holster. Basically, this gun will fit in 2011 style holsters. You want to save 10 10% on Ghost holsters. Use the code GEARUP10 at checkout. The Hydra P is really awesome for USPSA IPSC, and they recently redesigned the hanger. The hanger was kind of a weak point. Some folks were kind of bending them, having issues with them. The new one is reinforced and super solid. On the gun itself, basically it's 1911 fire controls, but you really don't even need to do anything to it because the way it comes out of the box is really, really squared away. Inside that box also are 2 additional recoil springs, a 10-pounder and a 12-pounder. It comes with an 11-pound spring, and I'm told that that's the one that you want to use for off-the-shelf factory minor loads. So I shot somewhere north of 1,000 rounds. I wasn't really keeping track, but I shot the Charlie class, I shot an indoor IDPA match, and there were 2 malfunctions. Talk about that in the negatives. Adjustments were made and the malfunctions completely went away, and it was another 500 to 700 rounds basically malfunction free. As far as shooting the gun is concerned, it is very much out to 15 yards like shooting my open gun, which I really, really love. The fact that it is only 37 ounces makes the gun handling really, really nice. Flies out of the holster, reloads are very easy. Manipulating the gun because of the serrations and the 5-inch forend is really, really good. The return to 0 is very, very nice. It feels almost like an open gun inside 15 yards. Once you bracket out past 15 yards, you start to miss the compensator, but because of how the trigger guard is, how the grip is shaped, and how grippy the grip is, it's very easy to return the gun to 0. The accuracy with the gun is off the charts, and the very first thing they do in a class is they make you shoot groups. And I was doing group shooting. I was stacking the holes on a cloverleaf at 15 yards, out to 25 yards, no problems whatsoever. This gun is as accurate as you are. The magazines will lock the slide to the rear. They are slide lock magazines out of the box, which isn't something you really want for USPSA style competition, but it is something you really want for IDPA style competition. So depending on what you're getting guns for, you may need different magazine follower choices. Shooting the gun next to the tack had a much more abrupt and quicker recoil impulse. The air is just a lot smoother and seems to not oscillate quite as bad, although it doesn't really show up in the slow-mo. So let's talk about those negatives, and we'll go from kind of like least to most serious. So the least most serious issue is that the foam cutout that comes in the box does not have space for an optic. Good news is that it's foam and you can just cram the thing on top of it and compress it and keep the lid shut, and it works just fine. But kind of annoying. Would be nice if it accommodated an optic. Number 2 is talking about the 2 malfunctions. The malfunctions that I had were hammer follow. Whoa!
Do-over.
What happened there?
Hammer follow.
And the reason I had hammer follow was because the over travel on the trigger was set up too aggressively. There was almost no over travel. I dialed in about a quarter to a half turn of over travel, and now the over travel looks like this. So no problems there. The gun is super solid. It didn't add any appreciable time to my splits or anything like that. The gun is just ridiculous. And that's an easy problem to kind of miss on setting up a trigger. It's very common with adjustable overstop style triggers that the gunsmith who's setting the gun up can set it up very aggressively, and with how they pull the trigger, there's not problems. And with how I happen to pull the trigger after about 300 rounds or so, I experienced my first issue with hammer follow. Later on in the day, it happened again, and then I made the adjustment at lunchtime, and the problem completely went away. And finally, what I would consider the biggest negative for the gun, and even still, it's not that big. The way the optic plate works is there is no mechanical relationship between the plate and the slide. The plate is just held in place by 4 screws. There are 2 short screws on the extractor side and 2 long screws on kind of the mag release side of the pistol. When I initially put the optic on, I didn't use my torque wrench. I didn't use enough Loctite. I trusted that the Loctite on the screws was enough. It never is, guys. That is a pro tip for you. So what ended up happening in the 105-degree Texas heat while shooting a bunch of drills, the gun was hot because it was in the sun. The gun was heating up because I was shooting a bunch of ammo through it, and the Loctite basically got defeated, and my optic plate started walking loose. Because there is no mechanical relationship between the plate and the slide, you really have to nail that torque spec on the plate. So I came home that night, I unmounted the optic, and I remounted the plate onto the slide with a more generous amount of Loctite, making sure to torque it down to spec. and the gun has held up. There's been no problem since. I would say that because there is no mechanical relationship between the plate and the slide, it is going to make poorly torqued screws walk out, and that's what happened to that. So that's the largest issue that I had. So just be aware when you're installing the plate and you'll be just fine. So final thoughts on the Bul Armory Air. This gun is awesome. It looks like my Ultimate Racer gun, which I think is a pretty awesome open gun. It shoots really, really well. It is lights out accurate, and it is for the same price as like a Staccato P, but it's more of a thoroughbred for gun racing than something like a Staccato P. The extra 5-inch barrel is going to take marginal ammunition and make it make power factor, at least we hope. But everything about the gun screams high quality. I put this gun in the hands of several people in the class, and this was their varied reactions.
Man, super accurate. Look at that headshot. In the same hole. In the same hole. It just comes back, right?
That's so nice. That's nice.
That is.
11. Some of those guys are 2011 shooters, some of them don't, but at the same time, the guns are insane. They're just really, really awesome guns. You get a lot more value than what you pay for with the Bul Armory guns. That's part of why I like Bul as a brand, is they bring really high quality stuff down to a price point that's more reachable. Now, granted, $2,650 is a lot of money, but if you were to buy a comparable 2011 style pistol, you would be paying like $300 to $3,500 for the thing. So at $2,650, the thing is a steal, and the saw, which is only $2,400 or whatever it is still a great deal as well. It's just the cuts don't go all the way through on the saw. Magazines are widely available. The Bul Armory branded ones are $50 to $60. They're pretty high quality stuff. You can buy the MBX for basically twice that. It's a squared away gun. And I get that some people are like, well, I want it to take 2011 mags, but the interesting thing about people who carry a 2011 and compete with a 2011 is they buy MBX mags. So you're still buying competition mags for your carry gun. It's nice to have mag commonality, I guess, if you're into the ecosystem, but I got a bunch of 2011 mags, I got a bunch of Bul mags, and you know, it is what it is. If you buy a new gun, you buy a new mag sometimes. So that's what I've got for you guys. Sound off in the comments with questions. If you have a gun you'd like to see this compared to, consider doing that. Or maybe support me over on Patreon. I always appreciate interacting with you guys over there. As always, I appreciate you guys, and I will catch you on the next one.